Hello, today I have the pleasure and honor of talking to you guys about the research that I've done on human resources trends and an interview I conducted um, with a certain HR professional. So hopefully you enjoy the presentation. So start off with a little bit of background. I conducted an interview around week 4 of this quarter with a HR manager for Crown Core Conceal Incorporated, Kaylin Ponzoa. And she was very informative. She was very respectful. We started off first with the email, a lot of email interviewing, and then had a short, brief phone conversation for some follow-on questions that I had. Um, and she was very, very informative, very eye-opening, and it was nice to see someone who started without the intentions of joining human resources to now being a top tier human resource manager for an international company in the aluminum industry business. Um, so some of the topics, the key ones I really want to touch on that we're really going to talk about during this presentation are the 5 soft skills and 10 interview questions that Crown looks for within a potential hiree. Some of the ADA and EEOC laws that pertain to their business and human resources within that industry. Some of the challenges in the HR industry that uh, Kaylin has encountered through her years of experience with HR. And then last but not least, um, we're going to talk about how she has a recommendations and a actually pathway that she helped me build into how to enter the human resources industry, which had a lot of surprising good things about it to learn. So moving on, the first thing, human resources and laws. So one of the big things that she kind of put a lot of emphasis on with human resources issues and laws is the Clean Air Act, Olympic Regional Clean Air Agency. Um, I know a lot of times, like you spend time with labor unions, you spend time with all those things, all of the discrimination laws and everything else. She wanted to kind of go a different direction and explain how the impact on the community has a influx on human resources. The health of your coworkers has it. So the Clean Air Act and Olympic Region Clean Air Agency controls the amount of pollution and inspects the pollution of any manufacturing facility in there. And it's actually part of the reporting that they constantly have to do for that branch of Crown. So she says it has a very significant impact with it when you start looking at, okay, what type of pollutants and everything else, and how are the employees doing? Is the area and the region around there good and healthy for people to do? Is this acceptable levels to guard human health in the environment? And it brings down to that third bullet. We'll skip the second one for a second, where it talks about community well-being and impact. The community is where you're hiring people, and this is why she kind of took this angle. And if you're not building a good, healthy environment around your facility, your business, your organization, there's going to be quite a potential that you're not going to get the quality candidates you want or people to work for you because they're going to have a negative image on you. So, abiding by those type of issues and finding that balance between manufacturing and the amount of pollutants that you're putting out there was a very big thing. And making sure, honestly, that you're avoiding those fines as an organization, and HR having that into that and providing what needs to be done to reach that. And then the other part of it, she says, a big thing is safety. We always hear OSHA, OSHA, OSHA. They're a manufacturing facility. They have forklifts. They have hydraulic machines. They have all these things that happen in there that make the workplace a very dangerous place. And incorporating OSHA into your annual year reviews and how you build your culture within your work environment was something that was a very hard thing that she had to bring into the HR world within that manufacturing facility that they have. So paying attention to that is a very critical thing for her as she was figuring out what issues and laws and how to adjust her HR department to match that facility and benefit that facility. So talking about behavioral job and interviews questions. This was a really fun topic that actually I enjoyed talking to her about. Um, I kind of broke it down into three different sections. As you can see, like it says, questions are based on applicants' experiences, foundation of emotional intelligence, ability to show growth, motivation, leadership, and then lastly, am I a fit for an organization? When I was breaking this down, I was thinking about this and I was like, the categories could be broken down in three different categories. And so I kind of did. So she gave me 10 good questions, and I'll read off some of those questions in a second. Um, but when I started looking at the ratio, um, three of them I built into three categories: leadership, a results category, and a growth slash emotional intelligence category. So three of them out of the 10 questions she gave me were based off of leadership. Four of them were based off of results, and three of them were based off of growth and emotional intelligence. And I kind of asked her, like, why is that? And she said anyone could preach a good game about leadership and have an emotional intelligence and everything else. But when we start getting into those results, is when we start seeing, is their leadership matching the results that they're talking about, the stories that they're providing? Is their growth and emotional intelligence matching those situations? So, like some of the questions she asked, like, what is the most challenging experience you had in manufacturing so far? Or tell us your last accomplishment. What was it? What motivated it? Looking at those type of questions, they want to see like what drives you, what provides that, where are your results coming from. And then we start talking about growth and emotional intelligence. And it's like, okay, everyone knows people don't get along at work, right? Or you're having a bad day. So how did you improve yourself? Right? How did you show that you didn't react in a bad way and you showed, sorry, positive self awareness to grow from that experience that happened and show that growth and that and emotional intelligence? And then what process did you use, right? When you had that team event and you were leading them, how did you stay centered and stay calm and collected and lead that team to victory? So very big things here to see about as we go through this. And then talking about leadership style. What is your leadership style, right? How did you coach that underperforming team member? How did you handle them? Like, what processes did you go through? Did you just go straight rigid? Did you kind of read how they react and things? Right? Those are the type of questions they're asking because they want to see how you're going to lead. They want to see, are you someone that's going to not just be a good hire, but be a long term benefit for the organization? So, very fun discussions to have when it came down to what type of interview questions do they ask for and what they're looking for. And that kind of ties into the next slide when we start talking about specific soft skills, right? So we start looking at specific soft skills here. These are five that they say these are our top five out of all the soft skills out there, right? They want good communication. Why do they want good communication? Because you're working in an organization that can get very fast paced, right? You got to teach people, you got to train people, you got to show them steps. Steps have to be followed, not just for OSHA, but for the efficiency, for the accuracy of that manufacturing that aluminum product. So they want to make sure that someone can communicate that. They want to make sure that someone can communicate to them, to coach them, to turn that underperforming employee around, right? They want emotional intelligence. Why is emotional intelligence important, right? Like I said earlier in the previous slide, reacting in a positive way under pressure. I know we've all seen those leaders who just like the second things hit a fan, they walk away for a second, right? Or they start freaking out and running around like a chicken with their head cut off, right? They don't want that. They want that person that's going to take a breath and then they're going to be like, hey, this is what we need to do. This is how to do it. Okay. Oh, wait, you have a better idea? All right, let me listen to that real quick. Let me see. Okay, I'll take that into consideration when making this quick decision so we can continue to move on and progress, right? Then we start looking at trustworthiness. When you do something wrong, are you going to tell the truth? Are you going to own that mistake? Are you going to grow from that mistake? Or are you just going to deflect it or hope that no one notices that you made that mistake? And next thing you know, someone gets hurt at work or a product gets sent out that wasn't to the right specifications that the customer ordered, right? Because they work in the aluminum industry. They want to have someone they can trust, because as you progress and you gain more influence in an organization, you're going to have to be trusted more. One bad decision or a lack of trustworthiness can have more repercussions as it trickles downhill, right? Then we look at time management. Big one. Everyone's always like, oh, I got great time management. I got this, right? Okay. One thing she said that I really liked, right? When she said this was having a to do list. So many people get, and then also she said, so many people get clogged up on answering emails or responding to emails that they don't realize, hey, I can't talk and do my job. I got to pick one or the other. So let me prioritize everything, right? Understanding that time management, understanding that this is my priority today. So last one that she talked about was problem solving. Pretty big one, pretty easy too. You think about it, like people sit there and they just like, all right, like I got to problem solve this. I got to figure out what I need to do, right? So sitting there and reacting in a positive way, kind of like how we talked about in emotional intelligence, looking at the big picture, regardless of how intense it may be, how fast paced things are, making the right decision is also important. That's very, very key as we try to figure things out, as a leader tries to figure things out inside of an organization. Um, Very, very big on that. Sorry, just looking at my notes real quick. Um, then you look at one thing that she brought up about there was how not being a great problem solver could have issues when there's staff shortages, right? People get sick, people don't always show up to work, family emergencies happen, people may show up late, people may just want a day off because it's a nice, beautiful day out. How do you solve that? How do you shift people to still meet that day's mission, that critical task that needs to be done? All right, so now we look at factors that managers use in designing professional development for employees, right? So she brought up a couple of really cool things too that I've also heard about as I've progressed out of the military. And a couple of those things were PIPs, professional improvement plans, right? That you see up there, which can also lead into key performance indicators using 360-degree feedback, management feedback, and complaints and deadlines. All of those things are things that are indicators on developing that professional improvement plan and that path toward helping employees, right? And it may not be a PIP, because PIPs can sometimes be a negative connotation with people because they're not meeting where they need to be meeting, or they're not building where they need to be built, right? But that's okay. So it's also twofold into that, right? Building up a SMART framework, right? Understanding, okay, hey, this is what I'm doing. How's the plan that we're going to get there, right? And then the biggest thing she said throughout this whole process is, if you do get to the process of a PIP, right? In those training events that have to happen throughout that, right? And what are some of those examples of training events? Coachings, observations, having someone follow that person throughout the day, right? Mentorship programs, right? Peer-to-peer mentorship programs. A lot of organizations use that. But throughout all that process, every step along the way, whatever role that person plays, is accountability and communication, right? Documenting is a big one. Why is documenting important, right? Because we look at one thing, right? One, we got to, as a human resource professional, you got to protect the age, you got to protect the organization that you're working on. But two, you also have to make sure that you're taking care of this person properly. So that way they show the growth, they show the improvement. So that way at the end of that pit, right? At the end of that formal coaching, the end of that event that triggered whatever improvement pathway they needed to go on, the business and the organization can decide, can I retain this employee or do I have to terminate employment? Because a business knows that it's more important, it's more beneficial to them to save money if they're able to retain an employee. So having a professional development program for an employee is always important.